The Underdark, a mysterious place deep beneath the surface, rife with subterranean caves, caverns, and tunnels. What we see in Baldur's Gate 3 is a mere fraction of the extent of the Underdark, and yet this small glimpse into another world reveals a myriad of tales, some of triumph and others of tragedy. Within the Underdark, there resides an arcane tower, home to Lenore de Hurst, an incredibly talented cleric of Mystra who hasn't been seen for over a decade. The tower is entirely reliant on magic or anti-magic properties to function, and solving the puzzle at the base of the tower brings the arcane machinations to life in a beautiful cutscene, displaying Lenore's genius design. Yet, despite this beautiful outside appearance, the story within paints a much darker picture of loneliness, heartbreak, and a burning question. What happened to Lenore? Let's tell a story. A renowned cleric of Mystra, the goddess of magic, lived within the Underdark. She set out to this dangerous region to study the magical properties of the various plants and animals present in the darkness below. Here she lived within her arcane tower with her dog Myrna and her partner Yer, a gnomish artificer with a particular knack for infusing lightning into many of their joint works. Lenore spent her days with Yer studying the effects of the sussurbloom, a strange anti-magic flower, and its effects it had on the weave, noting even those unattuned to the weave could still sense the effects of the anti-magical properties. She not only theorized the bloom of anti-magic could be used to create items, but she proved this notion through the operation of her magical arcane tower. She managed to harness the anti-magical properties of the flower to create something magical in nature. She hoped to continue her research to bring her findings back to the surface, where she would no doubt use this knowledge to further the efforts of Mystra upon the world. But this is not a happy story, as is so often the case in Faerun, and Lenore and Yer would soon have a disagreement, which would eventually lead to Yer leaving the Underdark altogether. It is said as Yer stepped onto the surface, they witnessed an awe-inspiring storm, which turned their interest in lightning to an all-consuming obsession. And as I'm writing this now, it occurs to me that the storm above was potentially spurned by Lenore's heartbreak. As a powerful cleric, it would not be out of the realm for her to conjure a lightning storm so extreme. Maybe this was even an attempt to persuade Yer to turn back around and come home. But ultimately, Yer did leave. Conjecture aside, one thing is true. Lenore remained in the Underdark, sequestered in her arcane tower. And here, Lenore would stay, working and spiraling into a type of loneliness that would lead her to create Bernard, a working automaton which was programmed to be operated with poetry as commands. Lenore's last known location was in her tower, and of course when we arrived, there's nobody there and seems to have been vacant for some time. So the question remains, what happened to our esteemed cleric? Her diary details how she was called to convene with the other clerics at Baldur's Gate, how she would bring her ring and set out. That last entry was 10 years ago. Aside from theorizing that she may have gone missing on her way to Baldur's Gate, the other, most obvious explanation lies within a note you can find on her desk. Here, a concerned friend wrote to Lenore, who worried about Lenore attempting to tame a bulette, a fearsome wild beast seen tracking our party early on into the Underdark. Her friend cautions Lenore about the dangers of training a wild animal as opposed to her beloved companion Myrna, a vastly different venture, to be sure. I believe the implication here is that in her quest to find another companion in the Underdark, Lenore befell a tragic end at the hands of something she loved most. This tale would turn even more tragic. Yer the Sparkstruck would return to the Underdark to make amends with her lover, Lenore, only to come home to an empty house and a note from Lenore asking Yer to wait for her return. Tragically, Yer waited about 4 months, and when there was no sign of Lenore, she left. Initially, I believed that on Lenore's trek back to the surface to convene with her fellow clerics of Mistra, she encountered a strange beast or had a terrible accident that prevented her from ever reaching the surface in the far corners of the Underdark. But thinking about this a little bit more, when Yer the Sparkstruck returned to the Underdark, I believe she would have checked all the typical places she knew Lenore to visit, and I think she would have encountered something along the way and left a note for us in the castle. Oftentimes, the simplest explanation is the one most likely to be true. Moving outside of the front gates and exploring around, you can find 2 pieces of evidence, which lead me to believe that Lenore did in fact perish to her beloved bullet she was attempting to tame. This pile of bones seems to be propped up in a way that almost invites you to investigate and find out what's going on. Here, in this spot, overlooking the vast expanse of darkness, is where she likely raised and fed the bullet. Lenore may have stopped to feed the bullet before heading out to Baldur's Gate. Whether by accident or intention, the bullet managed to cause a traumatic leg injury, which ultimately may have led to Lenore's death. We will likely never truly know what happened to Lenore. Maybe she is still out there in Baldur's Gate. Maybe she's out there somewhere else. What we can say is only time will tell. Or maybe time won't tell anything at all. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you guys think. Do you have your own theory? Do you have your own information that you came across while playing that might change the situation? If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by subscribing and leaving a comment down below. I really enjoy reading all the comments, and I want to thank everybody out there who has been supporting me through this and giving me a lot of feedback. I really, really appreciate it. Shout out to Legio Hysterius for the comments and asking me what happened to Lenore. It sent me on a bit of a goose chase, and I enjoyed every minute of it, so thank you so much for that. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day, and remember, roll a 20.